blood-red sunset stretched across the Montana sky like a wounded animal, casting long shadows over Harmony Parker as she slumped against her broken wagon wheel. 4 pairs of hungry eyes stared up at her children, waiting for answers she didn't have. The year was 1875, and her husband's grave was 3 weeks behind them, somewhere back in Missouri. Her fingers trembled as she tucked a strand of copper hair behind her ear, wondering how much farther they could go before everything fell apart completely. "Mama, I'm hungry," whispered 5-year-old Ellie, the youngest and frailest of her children. "I know, sweetheart. We all are." Harmony forced a smile, though her own stomach had been empty for 2 days now. She'd given the last of their provisions to the children, hoping against hope that they'd reach Helena before starvation became a real threat. 10-year-old Samuel, her oldest, stood rigid beside his sisters. "Pa would have known what to do," he muttered, kicking at the dusty ground. Harmony swallowed the lump in her throat. Thomas had been dead for nearly a month. Pneumonia had taken him quickly, leaving her with 4 children, a mountain of debt, and nowhere to go but west to her distant cousin, who'd offered them shelter in Helena. But the journey had been harder than she'd imagined, and now with the wagon wheel shattered beyond repair, she didn't know how they would continue. 8-year-old Mary and 7-year-old Anna huddled together, their thin dresses inadequate against the cooling evening air. Harmony pulled them close, trying to warm them with her own body, though she had little warmth to spare. "What are we going to do, Mama?" Mary asked, her voice small but trusting, as if Harmony had answers, as if she knew how to save them. The sound of hoofbeats interrupted her thoughts. Harmony stiffened, pulling her children closer. Bandits weren't uncommon on these trails, and a woman alone with 4 children made an easy target. She reached for the small revolver Thomas had insisted she carry, though she'd never fired it. A lone rider appeared against the darkening sky. Tall and broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Harmony's grip tightened on the revolver as he approached, slowing his horse to a walk. "Evening, madam," he called, his voice deep but gentle. "Seems like you folks might be in some trouble." "We're fine," Harmony replied automatically, though everything about their situation screamed otherwise. The stranger dismounted with fluid grace, keeping a respectful distance. "Name's Kieran Walsh. I don't mean to intrude, but that wheel ain't going nowhere, and nightfall's coming fast." His eyes took in the 4 children, their gaunt faces and tattered clothes, then returned to Harmony's face with an expression she couldn't quite read. "We're heading to Helena," she said stiffly. "My cousin's expecting us." Kieran nodded slowly, removing his hat to reveal dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through her brave front. "Helena's still 20 miles north, too far to walk, especially with the little ones." Harmony felt tears threatening, but blinked them back. She wouldn't cry in front of this stranger, wouldn't show weakness when her children needed her to be strong. Kieran glanced at the sky, then back at the family. "My ranch is about 3 miles east of here. It ain't much, but there's food and shelter. You and your children are welcome to stay until we can get your wagon fixed or arrange other transportation to Helena." "We don't take charity," Harmony said, even as her stomach clenched with hunger and her mind screamed at her to accept. Something like respect flickered in Kieran's eyes. "It ain't charity, madam. It's what neighbors do. Besides, I could use some help around the place. My housekeeper left 2 months ago, and I can't cook worth a damn." He smiled, and for the first time in weeks, Harmony felt something other than fear and exhaustion. Samuel stepped forward, standing protectively in front of his mother. "How do we know we can trust you?" Kieran regarded the boy solemnly. "That's a fair question, son. You don't know me from Adam. But I give you my word as a man that no harm will come to your family under my roof." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Harmony hesitated, weighing their options. They could stay here by the broken wagon and hope another traveler passed by, one who might not be as kind as Kieran seemed. Or they could accept his offer and at least get the children fed and sheltered for the night. "Mama, please," whispered Anna. "I'm so tired." That decided it. Harmony nodded. "We accept your offer, Mr. Walsh, but just for tonight." Relief crossed Kieran's face. "Let's gather what you can carry. I'll come back for the rest tomorrow." As they collected their meager belongings, Harmony watched Kieran help the children, gentle with Ellie, as he lifted her onto his horse. There was something in his manner, a quiet strength, an inherent kindness that reminded her of Thomas in the early days, before hardship had worn him down. When everything was secured, Kieran turned to Harmony, who stood uncertain beside the abandoned wagon. "Mrs.?" he questioned. "Parker, Harmony Parker." He nodded. "Mrs. Parker, I know this ain't easy, trusting a stranger. But you've got 4 good reasons to keep going." He nodded toward the children. "And now, you've got me to help you do it." The simple declaration, spoken without fanfare or expectation, broke something inside her, a dam of emotion she'd been holding back since Thomas took his last breath. "You've got me now," Kieran repeated softly, offering his hand. Harmony took it, her fingers cold against his warmth, and for the first time in months, she felt the faintest flicker of hope. The journey to Kieran's ranch took longer than expected, with the children too exhausted to maintain a steady pace. Kieran led his horse, which carried Ellie and Anna, while Harmony walked alongside Mary. Samuel insisted on carrying their heaviest bag, his small shoulders squared with determination. "Not much farther now," Kieran said as they crested a small hill. In the valley below, a modest ranch house stood surrounded by several outbuildings. A corral held a dozen horses, their shapes dark against the last light of day. "It's not what you might call fancy," he added, "but it's home." To Harmony, after weeks of sleeping under wagon canvas or open sky, it looked like paradise. As they approached, a dog's bark split the air. A large black and white border collie bounded toward them, followed by a lanky young man who emerged from one of the outbuildings. "That's Jake," Kieran explained. "My ranch hand, and the dog's bandit. Don't worry, he's all noise and no bite." The dog circled them excitedly before sitting at Kieran's feet, tongue lolling. Ellie giggled for the first time in days. Jake approached, surprise evident on his youthful face. "Boss, wasn't expecting you back tonight." His curious gaze took in Harmony and the children. "Jake, this is Mrs. Parker and her children. Their wagon broke down a few miles back. They'll be staying with us tonight, maybe longer." There was a note of authority in Kieran's voice that brooked no argument, though Jake showed no sign of objecting. "I'll get some rooms ready," Jake said, nodding respectfully to Harmony before jogging back to the house. Inside, the ranch house was simple but clean. A large main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall. The furniture was sturdy and practical, a large table with benches, several chairs near the fireplace, shelves filled with books and practical items. "It's usually just me and Jake," Kieran explained, almost apologetically. "Haven't had much cause for fancy things." "It's wonderful," Harmony said sincerely. After the cramped wagon, the solid walls and roof felt luxurious. While Jake prepared rooms, Kieran set about making a meal. It was basic fare beans, cornbread, and dried beef rehydrated in a stew, but to the starving family, it was a feast. "When did you last eat?" Kieran asked quietly as he watched the children devour their food. "The children had the last of our provisions yesterday," Harmony admitted. "I've been stretching things as best I could." Kieran's jaw tightened. "And you?" She looked away. "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." Harmony sighed. 2 days, maybe 3. The days blur together. Without comment, Kieran filled her bowl again, then sat across from her. "Eat," he said simply. "You need your strength." After the meal, with the children bathed and settled into beds, real beds with clean sheets, Harmony found herself alone with Kieran by the fire. The exhaustion of the day, combined with a full stomach, made her eyelids heavy. "You should rest," Kieran said, noticing her fatigue. "Tomorrow we can figure out your next steps." "Why are you helping us?" The question had been nagging at her since he first stopped by their wagon. Kieran stared into the fire. 6 years ago, I was riding through Nebraska during a blizzard, got separated from my trail partners. Would have frozen to death if a family hadn't taken me in, fed me, nursed me back to health. When I tried to pay them, the father refused, said, "Pass it on when you can." I reckon this is me passing it on. "I'll pay you back," Harmony insisted. "Once we reach Helena, my cousin will help us get established. I plan to find work, maybe teaching." "You're educated then?" "I taught school before I married Thomas." The mention of her husband's name brought a fresh wave of grief. He was a good man, a good father. The farm failed after 3 bad seasons. And the debts. She trailed off. And now you're heading to your cousin's, Kieran finished for her. What's waiting for you there? Harmony twisted the simple gold band on her finger. I'm not entirely sure. We've exchanged letters over the years, but we haven't seen each other since we were girls. She said there's work in Helena, that her husband might know of positions available. Kieran nodded thoughtfully. Helena's growing fast. Lots of opportunity there. And what about you? Harmony asked. Have you always lived here? A smile played at the corners of his mouth. No, madam. I was born in Boston, if you can believe it. My father was a businessman who lost everything in '57. The family moved west to start over, but my parents didn't survive the journey. I was 14. Ended up working cattle drives until I saved enough to buy this place 5 years ago. I'm sorry about your parents, Harmony said softly. He shrugged. It was a long time ago, but it taught me something important. Life can change in an instant, for better or worse. All we can do is keep moving forward. The simple wisdom resonated with Harmony's own philosophy, the one that had kept her going these past difficult months. You should get some sleep, Kieran said again, rising from his chair. Tomorrow's soon enough to make plans. Harmony nodded, suddenly too tired to argue. As she made her way to the room where her daughters slept, she paused at the doorway. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, not just for the food and shelter, but for... She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate the relief of having someone else shoulder part of her burden, even temporarily. Kieran, he corrected gently. And you're welcome, Mrs. Parker. Harmony, she replied, the ghost of a smile crossing her face. Good night, Kieran. Good night, Harmony. As she closed the door behind her, Harmony felt a strange fluttering in her chest, an unfamiliar feeling she wasn't ready to examine too closely. For now, it was enough that her children were safe and fed. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for tonight, they were taken care of. And that was more than she'd had yesterday. Morning came with the crowing of roosters and the gentle stirring of her children. For a disorienting moment, Harmony forgot where they were, until the events of the previous day came rushing back. Ellie was already awake, peering out the window at the ranch yard below. Mama, there are chickens, she exclaimed, and Mr. Kieran is feeding them. Harmony joined her daughter at the window. Sure enough, Kieran was in the yard, scattering feed for a dozen or so hens. He moved with easy confidence, pausing occasionally to check on other animals. Even from a distance, there was something compelling about him, a steadiness she found herself drawn to. Can we go help? Anna asked, now awake and curious. Let's get dressed first, Harmony answered, suddenly conscious of her wrinkled dress and untamed hair. By the time they made it downstairs, the aroma of coffee and frying bacon filled the house. Jake was at the stove, flipping pancakes with surprising skill. Morning, Mrs. Parker, he greeted cheerfully. Boss said to make sure you all had a proper breakfast. That's very kind. Can we help? Jake shook his head. All taken care of. Kieran's just finishing the morning chores. Said to tell you he'd be in shortly. Samuel appeared from the room he'd shared with Jake, his hair still wet from washing. Something smells good, he said cautiously, as if afraid to show too much enthusiasm. Pancakes and bacon, Jake confirmed, plus eggs fresh from the hens. The children exchanged excited glances. Such a breakfast had become a distant memory during their difficult journey. Kieran entered as they were sitting down to eat, bringing with him the fresh scent of morning air and hay. Hope you all slept well, he said, washing his hands at the basin before joining them. Better than we have in weeks, Harmony admitted. Breakfast was a lively affair. Jake entertained the children with stories of ranch life, while Kieran ate quietly, occasionally joining in with a comment or gentle correction when Jake's tales grew too tall. Harmony watched her children's faces, bright and animated for the first time since Thomas's death, and felt a weight lift from her shoulders. After the meal, Kieran suggested they discuss plans. I sent Jake to look at your wagon. From what you described, we'll need a new wheel, maybe an axle too. How long will that take? Harmony asked. A week, maybe more. I need to send to Helena for parts. Harmony's heart sank. We can't impose on you for that long. It's no imposition, Kieran insisted. In fact, I've been thinking. You mentioned you need work once you reach Helena. Why not start here? As I said, I've been without a housekeeper for months. The place could use a woman's touch, and I'd pay fair wages. Might help you build a nest egg before you reach the city." The offer took Harmony by surprise. "You're offering me employment?" "I am. Room and board for you and the children, plus wages. At least until your wagon's fixed. After that, if you still want to continue to Helena, I'll personally see you there safely." It was a generous offer, almost too generous. Harmony studied his face, looking for hidden motives, but found only sincerity. "Why would you do this for strangers?" she asked. Kieran met her gaze steadily. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because—" He hesitated. "Because this place needs some life in it. It's been just me and Jake for too long." Something in his expression, a flicker of loneliness, quickly masked, resonated with Harmony's own isolation. "What would my duties entail? Cooking, cleaning, mending, nothing you wouldn't do in your own home. The children would be welcome to help with age-appropriate chores if they're willing. Samuel seems like he might enjoy learning about the horses." At the mention of his name, Samuel perked up. "Could I really?" Kieran nodded seriously. "A ranch needs many hands, son. I started learning to ride when I was younger than you." The obvious delight on Samuel's face made Harmony's decision easier. "We accept, then, until the wagon is repaired." Relief and something else, pleasure, perhaps crossed Kieran's face. "Good. That's good." The first week passed in a blur of activity. True to her word, Harmony threw herself into bringing order to the ranch house. Years of bachelor living had left the place functional, but stark. With Kieran's permission, she rearranged furniture, hung curtains found in a trunk, and set the girls to polishing neglected silverware. The kitchen became her domain. She discovered that while the pantry was well stocked with basics, Kieran and Jake had been subsisting mainly on beans, bacon, and whatever game they could hunt. Using her mother's recipes, Harmony transformed these simple ingredients into satisfying meals that brought appreciative smiles to their faces. Samuel spent every moment he could with the horses. Kieran proved to be a patient teacher, showing the boy how to groom, feed, and eventually ride a gentle mare named Daisy. The change in her son was remarkable, his sullen grief giving way to a cautious enthusiasm as he absorbed every lesson. The younger girls found their places too. Mary, always practical, appointed herself egg gatherer and helper to Jake in the vegetable garden. Anna, more dreamy, spent hours with Bandit the dog, teaching him tricks and exploring the safe areas of the ranch. Even little Ellie bloomed, her frail body growing stronger with regular meals and outdoor play. For Harmony, the most unexpected development was her evolving relationship with Kieran. Each evening, after the children were in bed, they would sit by the fire and talk. She learned that beneath his quiet exterior was a thoughtful mind. He'd educated himself through books, and his shelves held everything from practical manuals to poetry. "My mother loved Wordsworth," he explained one night, showing her a worn volume. "She read to me every evening, said beautiful words were food for the soul, same as bread is for the body. She sounds like a wise woman." She was. A shadow crossed his face. She deserved better than dying on the trail to a new life. Instinctively, Harmony reached out, her hand covering his. "I'm sorry." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a recognition of shared loss, of understanding the weight of moving forward alone. For a breathless moment, Harmony thought he might turn his hand to hold hers, but he gently withdrew instead. "It's getting late," he said softly. "And tomorrow's Saturday. I promised the children we'd have a picnic by the creek if the weather holds." Harmony nodded, suddenly aware of a new tension between them. "Yes, they're looking forward to it." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "Good night, Kieran." "Good night, Harmony." As she climbed the stairs, Harmony acknowledged to herself that something was changing. The warmth she felt in Kieran's presence wasn't merely gratitude anymore. It was something more complicated and dangerous. She was a widow with 4 children, and no means of support beyond what he provided. He was a kind man who'd offered help when they needed it most. To mistake that kindness for anything more would be foolish. Yet, as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't help remembering the strength of his hands as he showed Samuel how to hold the reins, the crinkles around his eyes when he smiled, the quiet way he listened when she spoke as if her words mattered. For the first time since Thomas died, Harmony allowed herself to feel something other than grief and worry. It was terrifying and exhilarating. The promised picnic dawned clear and warm. Harmony packed a basket with fried chicken, biscuits, and apple tarts she'd baked the previous day. The children could barely contain their excitement as they followed Kieran down a winding path to a creek that cut through his property. The spot he chose was idyllic, a grassy bank shaded by cottonwoods, the water clear and shallow enough for safe wading. Jake had been invited but declined, claiming work in the barn needed attention. "This is beautiful," Harmony said as she spread the blanket. "How is it you never mentioned this place before?" Kieran shrugged, helping Ellie remove her shoes for wading. "Haven't had much reason to come here lately. Place like this is better with company." The day unfolded in a series of simple pleasures. The children splashed in the creek, collecting pretty stones and chasing minnows. Kieran showed Samuel how to skip rocks across the water, while Harmony and the girls made daisy chains. They ate lunch in companionable conversation, and afterward, Kieran produced a book of folk tales. "My mother used to read these to me," he explained, settling against a tree trunk. "Thought the children might enjoy them." To Harmony's surprise, he proved to be an animated storyteller, changing his voice for different characters and drawing the children in with dramatic pauses. Even Samuel, still trying to maintain his role as the man of the family, was captivated. As the afternoon waned, the younger children grew drowsy. Ellie fell asleep with her head in Harmony's lap, while Mary and Anna curled together on the blanket. Samuel, determined to stay awake, eventually nodded off, leaning against Bandit. In the sudden quiet, Harmony found herself alone with Kieran in a way that felt more intimate than their fireside talks. "They needed this," she said softly, stroking Ellie's hair. "A day to just be children again." Kieran's gaze lingered on her face. "And what about you, Harmony? What do you need?" The question caught her off guard. For so long, her own needs had been secondary to her children's survival. "I don't know," she admitted. "To keep them safe. To find a place where we belong." "And for yourself, apart from being their mother?" Harmony looked away, watching the play of light on the water. "I'm not sure I remember how to want things for myself anymore." "You should," Kieran said gently. "You deserve happiness too." Their eyes met, and the understanding in his gaze nearly undid her. Without thinking, Harmony reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. "Thank you for all of this." He covered her hand with his, warm and calloused. "You don't need to thank me. Having you and the children here, it's brought life back to the ranch. Back to me." The admission hung between them, laden with meaning neither was ready to fully acknowledge. Harmony felt her heart quicken, aware of how easily she could lean toward him, how much she wanted to. The moment was broken by Ellie stirring in her lap. "Mama," the child murmured sleepily. Kieran withdrew his hand, a rueful smile touching his lips. "We should head back before it gets dark," he said, rising to wake the other children. As they gathered their things, Harmony felt a curious mixture of disappointment and relief. Whatever was growing between them would need time she wasn't sure they had. In the back of her mind, Helena and her cousin's home still waited, the destination she'd promised her children. Yet, with each passing day, the thought of leaving brought less comfort and more apprehension. The ranch was becoming home in a way she hadn't anticipated. And Kieran. Kieran was becoming something she hadn't dared hope for again. 2 weeks stretched into 3, then 4. The wagon repairs proved more complicated than initially thought, with parts delayed from Helena. Harmony suspected Kieran wasn't pushing for urgency, and truthfully, neither was she. Life at the ranch had fallen into a rhythm that suited them all. The children thrived with regular meals, fresh air, and the stability of routine. Samuel had become Kieran's shadow, learning ranching skills with dedication that made Harmony's heart ache with pride. The girls had their own pursuits, Mary helping in the kitchen, Anna caring for the chickens, and Ellie charming everyone with her growing strength and bright spirit. For Harmony, the transformation was more subtle, but no less profound. The constant worry that had lined her face began to ease. She gained back weight lost during their difficult journey, and sometimes, catching her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman looking back, cheeks flushed with health, eyes bright with something like happiness. Her relationship with Kieran evolved in small moments, a lingering glance across the dinner table, his hand at her elbow as he helped her over a fallen log during a walk, the brush of fingers as they reached for the same book. Each instance charged with awareness neither acted upon. The barriers between them remained unspoken but real, her status as his employee, her 4 children, the short time they'd known each other, the memory of Thomas still fresh in the children's minds. Then came the letter from Helena. Harmony's cousin Beatrice had finally received word that the family was delayed and wrote expressing concern. The letter arrived with Jake, who'd made the trip to town for supplies. Harmony read it at the kitchen table, anxiety building with each line. "Bad news?" Kieran asked, entering from the yard. "Not exactly." She handed him the letter. "My cousin is expecting us. She sounds worried." Kieran read silently, his expression carefully neutral. "You should write back. Let her know you're safe." "Yes, of course." Harmony twisted her hands in her lap. "And I should make plans to continue to Helena. We've imposed on your hospitality far too long." "It's not an imposition." Kieran set the letter down. "You know that. Even so, we can't stay forever." "Why not?" The question hung in the air between them. Harmony stared at him, heart pounding. "What?" Kieran took a breath, as if gathering courage. "Why not stay, permanently? The children are happy here. You've made this place a home again. And He hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "I don't want you to go, Harmony." She couldn't look away from the intensity in his eyes. "Kieran, I know it's sudden. I know you're still grieving Thomas, but I've come to care for you and the children more than I thought possible. If you need time, I understand. If friendship is all you can offer, I'll accept that. But please, consider staying." The naked vulnerability in his face undid her. This strong, capable man was laying his heart bare, asking not just for her to stay, but for a chance at something more. "The children," she began weakly. "They've flourished here. Samuel's taking to ranch life like he was born to it. The girls are happy. Even Ellie's gained strength." It was true. All of it was true. But fear held her back, fear of depending on someone again, of opening her heart only to lose everything a second time. "I need time to think," she finally said. "This isn't a decision I can make lightly." Disappointment flickered across his face, but he nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need." That night, after putting the children to bed, Harmony slipped outside. The moon was full, casting silver light across the ranch yard. She walked to the corral fence, leaning against it as she had so many times in recent weeks, watching the horses move like shadows in the darkness. "Mama?" Samuel's voice startled her. He approached, still in his day clothes. "Are we leaving?" Harmony sighed. "You heard." He nodded, coming to stand beside her at the fence. "I don't want to go," he said quietly. "I like it here." "I know you do, sweetheart. But our plan was always to reach Helena, to start over with Cousin Beatrice's help." Samuel was silent for a long moment. "Pa would want us to be happy," he finally said. "And we're happy here. Even Mary, and she cried for Pa every night on the trail." The simple wisdom in his words struck Harmony deeply. "When did you get so grown up?" she asked, smoothing his hair. He shrugged, uncomfortable with the affection. "Kieran says a man has to think things through before deciding. He says that's what separates boys from men." "Kieran's a wise man." "He loves you, Mama." Samuel said it matter-of-factly, with a child's direct perception. "And I think you love him too." Harmony felt her cheeks warm. "It's not that simple, Samuel." "Why not?" "Pa's gone. He isn't coming back, but we're still here, and we need to live." There was a fierceness in his young face that reminded her so much of Thomas it made her heart ache. "Do you think the girls feel the same way?" she asked. Samuel nodded. "Mary asked me yesterday if Kieran could be our new Pa someday, and Anna's already calling this place home. Even Ellie draws pictures of all of us together with Kieran and the horses." Harmony hadn't realized how much the children had attached themselves to this place to Kieran. Perhaps she'd been so focused on guarding her own heart that she'd missed the obvious signs. "I'll think about it," she promised. "Now, off to bed with you. It's late." After Samuel left, Harmony remained by the corral, her mind churning. Could they really stay? Could she allow herself to love again, to build a life here? The sound of footsteps made her turn. Kieran approached, his expression uncertain. "I saw Samuel heading back inside," he explained. "Wanted to make sure everything was all right." "He doesn't want to leave," Harmony said. "None of the children do, apparently." Kieran moved closer, leaning against the fence beside her. "And what about their mother?" Harmony looked up at the stars, finding comfort in their eternal presence. "Their mother is afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of depending on someone again. Afraid of what happens if things don't work out. 4 children is a lot to take on, Kieran. I know that. I've spent every day with them for the past month. I've seen Samuel's nightmares and Mary's quiet grief. I've helped Anna with her reading and carried Ellie when she was too tired to walk. They're not just your burden, Harmony. They're your greatest blessing. And you'd take us all on, just like that?" He turned to face her, his eyes serious in the moonlight. "Not just like that. Because I've grown to love them. Because I've grown to love you." The declaration, spoken plainly and without embellishment, took her breath away. "Kieran, you don't have to say anything now," he interrupted gently. "But know this, I meant what I said earlier. I want you to stay, all of you, not as my housekeeper, but as—" He hesitated, then continued with quiet resolve. "As my family. If you'll have me." The emotion in his voice broke through the last of Harmony's defenses. Without conscious thought, she moved closer, her hand finding his on the fence rail. "I'm still healing," she whispered. "Thomas was my husband for 11 years, the father of my children. I can't just forget him. I would never ask you to." Kieran's fingers intertwined with hers. "The love you had for him is part of who you are. Part of what makes you the woman I've come to admire. I don't want to replace those memories. I want to create new ones alongside them." His understanding, his acceptance of Thomas's place in her heart, moved her deeply. She looked up at him, really looked, taking in the strong lines of his face softened by moonlight, the kindness in his eyes, the patience in his expression. "I think I could love you," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I think perhaps I already do, but I'm not ready to make promises. The children need stability. I need to be sure." Kieran's smile was gentle. "Then we'll take it slowly. Day by day, no rush, no pressure, just the chance to see where this leads." Relief and something like joy flooded through her. "I'd like that." He raised their joined hands, pressing a kiss to her knuckles with a tenderness that made her heart flutter. "So would I." They stood together in companionable silence, watching the moon's light play across the ranch yard. For the first time since Thomas's death, Harmony felt not just resignation to her fate, but anticipation for what tomorrow might bring. And when Kieran's arm slipped tentatively around her shoulders, she leaned into his warmth, accepting the comfort and promise it offered. The weeks that followed took on a new quality, a sense of building rather than waiting. Harmony wrote to her cousin in Helena, explaining the situation and her decision to remain at the ranch for the foreseeable future. Beatrice's reply was understanding, with an open invitation to visit whenever they wished. With their immediate future decided, Harmony and Kieran began the delicate dance of 2 people learning each other. Their evenings by the fire grew longer, conversations deeper. He told her about his dreams for the ranch, expanding the herd, adding more crops, perhaps building a larger house someday. She shared stories of her childhood in Ohio, her brief teaching career, the early happy years with Thomas. Physical affection developed gradually between them, a touch of hands while working together, his arm around her waist as they watched the sun set, the first tentative kiss on the porch one evening after the children were asleep, sweet and brief, but filled with promise. The children responded to the changing relationship with varying reactions. Samuel was cautiously approving, watching Kieran carefully as if measuring him against memories of his father. Mary, practical as always, seemed to accept it as a sensible arrangement. Anna was delighted, peppering Kieran with questions about whether they would have a celebration, while Ellie simply took to climbing into his lap during story time, as naturally as if she'd been doing it all her life. Autumn arrived, painting the landscape in gold and crimson. Harmony had been at the ranch for nearly 3 months when Kieran suggested a trip to Helena. "You should meet your cousin," he explained. And the children need winter clothes. We could make a week of it. The prospect of entering town as Kieran's, what? Not wife, not yet, but more than employee or friend. Both excited and terrified her. What will people think? She asked. That I'm the luckiest man in the territory, he replied simply. The journey to Helena was nothing like their desperate trek across the plains. They traveled in Kieran's sturdy wagon. Well-provisioned and comfortable, the children treated it as a great adventure, pointing out landmarks and wildlife along the way. Helena proved to be a bustling, growing city, filled with the energy of a place being built through sheer determination. Beatrice and her husband Edward welcomed them warmly, insisting they stay in their comfortable home rather than the hotel Kieran had planned. Over dinner that first night, Beatrice drew Harmony aside. "He's a good man," she observed, watching Kieran entertain the children with Edward. "I can see it in how he looks at you and them." "He is," Harmony agreed. "Better than I deserve, perhaps." "Nonsense. You deserve every happiness." Beatrice squeezed her hand. "Thomas would want that for you, you know." The simple statement, coming from someone who had known Thomas in their youth, loosened something in Harmony's chest. "Do you really think so?" "I know so. He loved you too much to want you to spend your life alone." Beatrice's eyes were kind. "The question is, do you love Kieran enough to start again?" Did she? Harmony looked across the room at Kieran, who was showing Samuel how to play checkers. He glanced up, catching her gaze, and smiled that warm, gentle smile that had become as necessary to her as breathing. "Yes," she said softly. "I think I do." Their week in Helena was filled with shopping, socializing, and introducing the children to city life. Kieran proved to be well respected among the merchants and bankers, his ranch apparently more successful than his modest demeanor suggested. On their final evening in the city, he suggested a walk after dinner. The air was crisp with approaching winter, the stars sharp against the dark sky. "I have something to ask you," Kieran said, as they strolled along the lamplit street. "Something I've been thinking about for some time." Harmony's heart quickened. "Oh?" He guided her to a small park where a bench sat beneath a large oak. Once seated, he took her hands in his. "These past months have been the happiest of my life," he began. "Having you and the children at the ranch. It's like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." "We feel the same," Harmony said softly. "You've given us so much." Kieran shook his head. "You've given me more, a purpose beyond work, laughter in a house that was too quiet, a family when I'd resigned myself to being alone." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I want to make it official, Harmony. I want to be a husband to you and a father to your children if you'll have me." Opening the box revealed a simple gold band set with a small diamond, nothing ostentatious but beautiful in its elegance. "It was my mother's," he explained. "The one thing of value I kept through all the hard years. I always hoped to give it to the woman I would spend my life with." Tears filled Harmony's eyes. "Kieran, Before you answer," he interrupted gently, "I want you to know something. I understand that Thomas will always have a place in your heart. I would never ask you to forget him or diminish what you shared. But I believe there's room in your heart for a new love alongside the old one." The thoughtfulness of his words, his understanding of her complicated emotions moved her deeply. "I don't need an answer tonight," he continued. "Take all the time you—" "Yes," Harmony interrupted, squeezing his hands. "My answer is yes." Joy blazed across his face. "Are you certain?" "More certain than I've been about anything in a very long time." She reached up to touch his cheek. "You've shown me that it's possible to honor the past while embracing the future. You've given my children safety and stability when they needed it most. And you've given me the courage to love again when I thought that part of me had died with Thomas." Kieran slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms. Their kiss was tender at first, then deepened with the promise of all they would share. "When?" he asked when they finally parted. "Before winter sets in," she decided. "A small ceremony at the ranch, with the children and a few friends." "Whatever you want," he agreed, his eyes never leaving her face. "As long as at the end of it, you're my wife." The word sent a thrill through her. Wife. A title she had worn before, but would now claim anew, with this man who had appeared in her life when all seemed lost. They returned to Beatrice's house hand in hand, the future stretching before them, bright with possibility. The wedding took place on a clear November day, with the mountains standing sentinel in the distance. Reverend Johnson from the nearest town officiated, while Beatrice and Edward made the journey from Helena to stand with them. Jake had outdone himself decorating the ranch house with autumn leaves and late-blooming wildflowers. Harmony wore a new dress of deep blue silk, Kieran's gift with her hair arranged simply and crowned with a wreath of dried flowers the girls had made. Samuel walked her from the house to the arbor Kieran had built, especially for the occasion, his young face solemn with the responsibility. The children stood beside them during the ceremony, not merely witnesses but participants in the union that would make them a family. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Kieran kissed Harmony with restrained tenderness, then bent to embrace each child in turn. "We belong to each other now," he told them, "all of us." The celebration that followed was modest but joyful. Neighbors from miles around came to offer congratulations and share in the feast. There was music and dancing, with Kieran surprising everyone by revealing a fine singing voice as he serenaded his new wife. As evening approached, Beatrice and Edward took charge of the children, who would stay with them in the guest cabin for the night. Harmony watched them go, Samuel protective of his sisters as always, but more relaxed than she'd seen him since before Thomas's illness. "They'll be fine," Kieran assured her, his arm around her waist. Jake promised to show them the new foal in the morning. "I know." She leaned against him, enjoying the solid warmth of his body. "It's just strange. I haven't spent a night away from them since Thomas died," he finished gently. "It's all right to say it, Harmony. He's part of our story now." The simple acceptance in his voice warmed her heart. "You're an extraordinary man, Kieran Walsh. And you're an extraordinary woman, Harmony Walsh." He smiled, testing the sound of her new name. "Mrs. Walsh. I like the sound of that." "So do I." And she did, surprising herself with how right it felt. Later, alone in the bedroom that was now theirs, Harmony felt a moment of nervousness. Kieran sensed it immediately. "We have all the time in the world," he said softly, taking her hands. "There's no rush." But Harmony shook her head, stepping closer. "I don't want to wait. I want to be your wife in every way." Their coming together was tender, unhurried, a gentle exploration of new territory. Kieran was patient, attentive to her responses, learning what brought her pleasure. When they finally joined, Harmony felt not just physical satisfaction, but a deep emotional connection, the sealing of promises made, the beginning of their shared future. Afterward, lying in his arms, she traced patterns on his chest. "I never expected to find this again," she admitted. "After Thomas died, I thought that part of my life was over." Kieran pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Life has a way of surprising us. When my parents died, I thought I'd never have a family again. Now I have a wife and 4 children. Are you sure you're ready for that? 4 children is a lot to take on at once." He chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. "I'm counting on it being more eventually." The thought of having a child with Kieran, of expanding their already full house, filled Harmony with unexpected longing. "I'd like that," she whispered. "Someday." "No rush," he assured her. "We have a lifetime ahead of us." A lifetime. The promise of it stretched before her like the Montana sky, vast and full of possibility. Winter descended on the ranch with a ferocity that Harmony, used to milder Missouri weather, found breathtaking. Snow blanketed the land, transforming familiar landmarks into mysterious shapes. Inside, the house was warm and snug, with fires blazing in every hearth. The transition from housekeeper to wife, from guest to mistress of the home, happened with surprising ease. Kieran had always treated her with respect, but now there was a new dimension to their relationship, a partnership of equals, building a life together. Christmas approached, bringing with it a flurry of preparations. Harmony was determined to make it special for the children, their first holiday as a complete family. Kieran threw himself into the festivities with childlike enthusiasm, chopping down a magnificent pine tree and helping the children decorate it with homemade ornaments. "We never had a tree this big," Mary marveled as they strung popcorn garlands. "Your father and I could never afford such a large one," Harmony explained, a pang of guilt touching her heart. Kieran noticed her expression and drew her aside. "You're allowed to create new traditions without feeling you're betraying the old ones," he said quietly. "The children understand that things are different now, not better or worse, just different." His insight, as always, went straight to the heart of her concerns. "How did you get so wise?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. "Not wisdom, just learning from mistakes." He kissed the top of her head. "Now, I believe you promised to teach me how to make those molasses cookies your mother used to bake." On Christmas morning, the children woke at dawn, their excitement filling the house with joyful noise. Kieran had been secretly carving wooden toys for weeks, a horse for Samuel, a doll for each of the girls. Harmony had sewn new clothes and knitted scarves and mittens. The modest gifts were received with genuine delight. But the most emotional moment came when Kieran presented his final gift, legal adoption papers for all 4 children. "If you want," he explained to them, "these papers would make you officially my children in the eyes of the law. You'd take my name, and I'd be your father in every way that matters. But it's your choice. I'll understand if you want to keep your father's name." Samuel, always the spokesman for his sisters, looked at the papers solemnly. Would our real pa be mad? Harmony knelt beside him. "No, sweetheart. Your father loved you more than anything. He would want you to be happy and secure." The boy nodded slowly. "Then I think he'd be glad, because Kieran takes care of us like Pa would have wanted." One by one, the children agreed. Anna and Mary with understanding nods, Ellie with an enthusiastic hug for her new father. Harmony watched, tears streaming down her face. As Kieran gathered them all in his arms, "I promise to honor your father's memory," he told them, "and to be the best father I can be for all of you." That night, after the children were asleep, Kieran and Harmony sat by the fire, her head resting on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said softly. "What you did today, I don't have words." "They're my children now," he replied simply. "Have been since the day you all arrived. The papers just make it official." Harmony twisted to look up at him. "I have something to tell you, a Christmas gift I couldn't wrap." His brow furrowed with curiosity. "Oh? I'm quite certain that in about 7 months there will be 5 Walsh children instead of 4. For a moment, Kieran stared at her in disbelief. Then his face transformed with a joy so pure it took her breath away. "A baby? Our baby?" Harmony nodded, laughing as he lifted her from the chair to spin her around the room. "Careful. I've been feeling a bit queasy in the mornings." He set her down gently, his hands framing her face. "Are you happy about it? It's so soon after the wedding." "I'm ecstatic," she assured him. Surprised, but ecstatic. His kiss was tender, reverent. "I love you, Harmony Walsh, more than I ever thought possible." "And I love you, Kieran Walsh. You've given me a second chance at happiness I never thought I'd have." As they held each other in the firelight, Harmony reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the broken wagon wheel and her desperate fear to this moment of complete belonging. From a woman weary and broken to one filled with hope and love. She remembered his words on that first meeting. "You've got me now." Simple words that had become a promise fulfilled beyond her wildest hopes. Outside, snow fell gently, covering the land in pristine white. Inside, the house was warm with love and the promise of tomorrow. Spring arrived with a riot of wildflowers and the birth of new calves. Harmony's pregnancy progressed smoothly, her body blossoming as the land around them renewed itself. The children watched her growing belly with fascination, especially Ellie, who liked to press her ear against it to hear the baby talking. Kieran was attentive to the point of hovering, which both touched and occasionally exasperated Harmony. "I'm not made of glass," she reminded him one afternoon when he tried to prevent her from carrying a basket of laundry. "I know that," he replied, taking the basket anyway. "But you're carrying precious cargo." His protectiveness extended to hiring a young woman from town, Jenny, to help with household chores as Harmony's pregnancy advanced. Initially resistant to the idea of having help, Harmony soon appreciated the assistance, especially as summer heat made her increasingly uncomfortable. By August, she was ready for the baby to arrive. "I feel like I've been pregnant forever," she complained to Kieran one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the children play with Bandit in the yard. "You're more beautiful than ever," he said, his hand covering hers on her swollen belly. As if in response, the baby kicked vigorously. Kieran laughed, still amazed by the sensation after all these months. "Strong like their mother, or stubborn like their father," she countered with a smile. Labor began the next morning, earlier than expected. Kieran sent Jake riding for the midwife, while he helped Harmony to bed. The children were ushered to Beatrice and Edward's home, who had arrived for an extended visit in anticipation of the birth. "Don't leave me," Harmony gasped as a contraction seized her. "Wild horses couldn't drag me away," Kieran promised, holding her hand firmly. The midwife arrived in time, bringing calm efficiency to the birthing room. Kieran remained at Harmony's side throughout the long, difficult hours, wiping her brow, supporting her back, murmuring encouragement when her strength flagged. As sunset painted the sky outside their window, their daughter entered the world with a lusty cry that immediately captured their hearts. "She's perfect," Kieran whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face as he held her for the first time. "Look what we made, Harmony." The baby had a shock of dark hair like her father's, and eyes that hinted at becoming her mother's green. They named her Hope for all she represented in their lives. When the children were allowed to meet their new sister the next day, their reactions ranged from Samuel's studied nonchalance to Ellie's unbridled enthusiasm. Mary immediately appointed herself assistant caretaker, while Anna wanted to know if the baby could sleep in her room when she's bigger. "She has 5 people who already adore her," Harmony observed as Kieran sat beside her on the bed, the baby nestled between them. 6, he corrected. Jake asked if he could be her honorary uncle. Harmony laughed, then winced as her body reminded her of the ordeal it had just undergone. This family keeps growing in unexpected ways. The best kind of growth. Kieran leaned down to kiss her gently. "Thank you for our daughter, for our family, for saying yes when I asked you to stay. Thank you for stopping by a broken wagon when most men would have ridden past." She touched his cheek. "For seeing possibility when all I could see was despair." The following months brought adjustment, as they all adapted to life with a newborn. Hope proved to be a good-natured baby, quick to smile and slow to cry. Harmony recovered her strength gradually, grateful for Jenny's continued help, and the children's willingness to take on additional responsibilities. Kieran expanded the ranch operations, hiring 2 more hands to help with the growing herd. The extra income allowed him to begin construction on additions to the house, 2 new bedrooms, and a larger kitchen that Harmony had longed for. By Hope's first birthday, the family had settled into a new normal. The Walsh children, as they were now known throughout the county, were thriving. Samuel, nearly 12, showed true talent with horses and had begun accompanying Kieran on cattle drives. Mary, approaching 10, excelled in her studies and talked of becoming a teacher like her mother. Anna, at 9, had developed an unexpected interest in ranch finances, solemnly helping Kieran with basic bookkeeping. Ellie, no longer frail, ran wild with Bandit and charmed everyone she met. And baby Hope was walking, chattering, and clearly determined to keep up with her older siblings. On a warm September evening, 5 years to the day since Kieran had found them by the broken wagon, he and Harmony sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset. The children were inside, Samuel reading to his sisters, while Hope dozed in Mary's lap. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you hadn't stopped that day?" Harmony asked, her head resting on his shoulder. Kieran's arm tightened around her. "I try not to. The thought of never knowing you, never having this family, it's unimaginable now. I was so broken then," she reflected, "so weary and afraid. And look at you now." Pride resonated in his voice. "Running this household, raising 5 children, helping manage the ranch books. You're the strongest person I know, Harmony Walsh." She smiled, turning to press a kiss to his jaw. "Having someone to lean on makes being strong a lot easier." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of the sky. From inside came the sound of children's laughter, then Samuel's voice calling them to see something. "Duty calls," Kieran said, helping Harmony to her feet. As they walked hand in hand toward the house, their home harmony reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from desperation to contentment, from survival to joy. She remembered Kieran's words on that fateful day, spoken with simple certainty to a woman at the end of her rope. "You've got me now." 5 years later, those words had proven to be not just comfort for a difficult moment, but the foundation of a life rebuilt from ashes, a promise kept through seasons of change and growth, the beginning of a love story still being written day by day. In the heart of the Montana wilderness, as they stepped through the doorway into the warmth and light of their home, surrounded by the family they had forged together, Harmony knew with absolute certainty that she had found where she belonged. Not just a place, but a person, a partner, a love that had healed what was broken and renewed what was weary, and in that knowledge was the greatest peace she had ever known.